Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is good to have everyone here. I hope that I've already gotten started. So some of you might wonder sometimes what I actually am drinking. So this is actually a single shot cortado, and it's made with Airship Black Bear espresso with a little bit of steamed oat milk, and it's delicious. If you like coffee. If you don't, it probably isn't delicious. Oh, it is good to have everyone here. It's good to be present. Man, we have got a lot of stuff coming down the pipeline. I do want to just encourage you as we go through today's conversation, please scan the QR code if you want to connect. I've had a lot of correspondence over the last week and a half or so connecting on the blog, which is the Thinking Cup blog, as well as just getting emails, messages, private text messages, Facebook messages. Thank you for all of your encouraging words. The last couple of weeks have been fun, and they're going to get, I don't think it's a word, but they're going to get funner as we continue to study together and as we continue to really just dig in. I've got a lot of guests in the pipeline. I do want to let you all know this is coming next Tuesday. Mark your calendars. Tuesday. This will be a fun one. In fact, if you haven't yet, just subscribe to the channel. I know many of you already are, and I appreciate that, but do subscribe to the channel. This is going to be happening at 6 o'clock on Tuesday, Central Standard Time. And let me just share exactly what we're going to be doing here, because I've seen a lot of Trinity type conversations, and I want you all to be aware of what exactly this is going to be and what it isn't. I have not yet seen at least recently, a live stream where we are really looking at the historical development of the doctrine itself. And so we're going to do that. We're going to look at the Orthodox position, how it developed. We're going to look at the church fathers. We're going to lay that out, kind of see the timeline of how it all pans out and why it was the way it was. And then we're going to lay that next to the historical development of the Trinity doctrine inside the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And I will let you as the audience determine as we go, does it line up? Does it not line up? Is it the same? Is it not the same? What are the differences? Why are they different? And again, I'm going to save my position until the end of the conversation on Tuesday, but please do subscribe, like, share. It's already set up. So if you're on the channel itself, you can share that link with friends, family, colleagues. I would absolutely encourage you to share it with your Trinitarian or anti-Trinitarian Adventists, because there are both sides, and it's going to be a good conversation. It's going to be tasty, as we say. What else? Hey, don't forget, actually tonight at 6 o'clock this evening, Ryan Day is going to be going live on his new channel, Rethink Adventism. So please do subscribe to his channel. Had a great conversation with him this evening. Actually studied the Word of God with him this evening, and I am praying blessings over him as he shares some content. All right, well, I can't forget. I need to just tell you a book. We always do a book. And today's going to be a little bit unique. I'm actually going to read out of this today, but this is, I don't know if you can you see that? I think you can. Yeah. This is the Lexham English Septuagint, put out by Lexham Press. I would highly encourage you to pick up. It doesn't have to be Lexham Press, but an English translation of the Septuagint. And why would I encourage that? Well, the Septuagint is a Greek translation of the of sorry, is it at I just saw that flying Gentile. Um is it at 7? I thought it was at give me a second here. Let me look. I thought it was at maybe got the wrong time. It says 6 o'clock my time. So Central Standard Time. I guess. So if people are in different time zones, that might be different. So I appreciate you pointing that out. So anyways, the Septuagint. The Septuagint is a Greek translation of the Hebrew scriptures. But what is really two things that are really fascinating about the Septuagint. Number one, the Septuagint is the most quoted over the Hebrew scrolls by Jesus himself. He quotes the Septuagint more often than he does the Hebrew scriptures. And secondly, you will find all of the what Protestants like to say the added books, the extra books. As a Adventist, it's the Catholic books, which is a little bit of a misnomer because actually before there was Catholicism, before any of that transpired, these quite literally, these what we would call extra books were the books that were actually in the original, like sacred scrolls, if you want to call it that, before they were really canonized. So you've got other additional books like Esdras A and B. You have, let's see, Wisdom of Sirach, Judith, Tobit. What else? You have Baruch, Lamentation of Jeremiah, Epistle of Jeremiah, Susanna. I always love this next one because this next one is, I feel like I'm reading out of the Bible. I'm reading some sort of like Disney story because it's called Belle and the Dragon. And then you've got 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th Maccabees, Psalms of Solomon, Enoch, Otis, and then you got some alternative texts, at least in this particular version, because there are alternative texts of Tobit, Daniel, Susanna, and Bell of Dragon and the Dragon. So I would really encourage you to pick up one of these. This is going to be the book that I am going to suggest, and we're gonna dive into some Septuagint related things today. Obviously, I'll read out of this, but I'm gonna actually have it on the screen as well. Yes, Adrian, you absolutely can. I think you can get that over at Net Bible, I believe, right? So if you don't want to pick up something or pay for, the Net Bible is fabulous, and I believe that there's actually is that right? I think there is a Septuagint on netbible.org. I think it is. So anyways, yeah. Well, let's dive in today. Let's dig in. Let's have a quick word of prayer before we get started. And we're going to dive in to where we last left off, which we were talking about harem in the Hebrew scriptures with regards to the conquest in the days of Moses and Joshua. And I promise you that we will pull that back into why that's important to Revelation. All right, let's have a quick word of prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this day. Thank you for these wonderful people that are wanting to be studious and spend time in your word. I pray blessings over them, whether they're live with us or whether they watch at a future time. I pray that you would bless them, that your name would be honored and glorified, not just today, but in everything we do, say, and think as imagers of the one true God. Thank you so much for sending your Son, Jesus Christ, so that we can accept salvation and have faith in the righteousness of Christ. Thank you for loving us and for dying on the cross for us in your precious name. Amen. Okay. Thank you for the correction, Adrian. I do have the Net Bible. I've got several versions of the Septuagint, but I must have misspoken about that being available on the netbible.com or .org. All right, let's dive in. So, as I mentioned, we have been diving into this. Actually, we left off talking about the host in Isaiah 34. So, Isaiah 34. Let me just kind of read verse 4 here to just get us back into. This is going to have a couple of things. It's going to have the scroll in here, and it's going to also have this host of heaven, which we're going to get to. All the host of heaven shall rot away. That is really interesting, because what is the host of heaven, and how is it going to rot away? And the skies roll up like scroll. All their hosts shall fall as leaves fall from the vine, like leaves falling from the fig tree. Okay, so when it talks about, there is this understanding in this text, and I'm trying to find. Oh, let's keep reading, because I do want to show you just one other thing. So verse 5, for my sword, remember we talked about the sword and the angel of the Lord. So my sword has drunk its fill in the heavens. Behold, it descends for judgment upon Edom. Upon the people I have, and here we go, devoted to destruction. Now, I'm going to put on the screen here. Let's see, devoted to destruction. So you see down here in the transliteration of this word here, this is harem. We're going to get to that and why that's important with regards to this discussion. So this is the harem that is actually deeply tied. If you have read Heiser's book, The Unseen Realm, there is an entire section on this language, harem, which is the complete and utter destruction of something, devoting something to destruction. And that is tied to the conquest with regards to Moses and Joshua. When they entered into after they passed through the Jordan, they entered into the promised land and they began to kind of conquer. There are pockets of places in the land, the promised land, that were devoted to destruction. Man, woman, child, absolutely everything. That has always been a little bit of a challenge for me, until I understood this particular context, okay? So in Isaiah 34 specifically, when we get to verse 4, okay, and I want to pay close attention to verse 4 here. I want to talk a little bit about their host, okay? All the host, and you got here all their host, okay? So I want to do a quick search, real quick, of this Hebrew word that we have. Now, I'm gonna say this not to pick on any particular Adventist apologetic group that has 3-letter acronyms that start with A and ends with L. I don't know who that is, but I am going to say that it is really important when we're doing this kind of biblical study that we get further along into exegesis than just a concordance, okay? Because when we're doing word searching and we're trying to find connections in the text and places that kind of connect with the original language, we have to move past the English words and we have to move into the original language. And so one of the things that we can do here, it's the word hemshabah or sevam, if you translate it correctly. Now I'm going to say it with confidence because I am not a Hebrew scholar, okay? But I'm gonna show kind of how this how this pans out. Okay, so here we have, notice down here, Hem Sabah. Okay, that's what we're looking at. Hem Sabah. And normally, if you did a search that was just their host, and we can show you what this looks like. If I were to just search the English, let me do, let's see, let me search in the Bible, and I'll show you how this works real quick. So what you're looking at is you're looking at the English words in the ESV. Oh, I have some truck horn going off that I'm not sure what's going on outside. Hang on just a second. Hang on. I don't know what that was all about or what it is all about. But I always get a little concerned when horns are going off and no one's turning it off. All right, so let's look at this. So this is the English, okay? Now, I don't know necessarily if this will be any different, okay? But I want to look at, this is the actual original language. We have Genesis, Isaiah, Psalms, and Nehemiah. Now, Genesis, okay, this is really helpful, actually. So I want to, let me do this. I'm going to put these side by side. Here we go. So on the right-hand side, I want you to notice something. And this is an example of why we do original language work. Because you're going to miss some things if you're not paying attention to the original language. On the left-hand side, we have the English, their host. On the right-hand side, we're looking at the Hebrew scriptures. And do you notice anything different? Okay, it's the same. It's their host, but do you notice anything different? Notice that we're missing Genesis is not in the left-hand side. Now, why? Why would Genesis not be in the left-hand side here? Well, let's just go back over to Genesis 2 real quick. I'm going to nerd out for just a second. But notice, thus the heavens and the earth were finished and all the host of them. Technically, this is the same language, okay? If you notice the actual manuscript, the actual Hebrew, you can even see it in the small text over here. But the translators made a translation decision to not translate it identical to the English, their host, just the host, okay? So, which is why it didn't come up on the left-hand side, okay? You've got Psalms 33 is the same. You've got 3 in Isaiah, but notice, no, you got 4 in Isaiah. I apologize. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then Nehemiah. So the only one that's missing is Genesis 2:1. So this word, okay, it's the singular. The singular of this word is savah, and it refers to an army or a group or the host of heavens, like celestial objects, okay? What in the world, Adrian? Are you serious? They had the police search. IBG had the police search his house during a live show. Oh my goodness. That is incredible. All right, squirrel. So this Sivaam is the word with the plural suffix. It's their host. So normally it'd be host, but their host is Sephaam. And I want you to notice that every single time this word is used, pay attention to the context. Every single time this word is used, it refers to or speaks to celestial objects, not earthly armies. Okay, pay attention. We have, you are the Lord, you alone. You have made the heaven of heavens with all their hosts. Okay, that's all. It's very clearly directed to the heavenly hosts up in heaven. Psalms, same thing, their host in the heavens. Isaiah, enraged against all the nations, furious against all their hosts, he has devoted them to destruction, has given them over for slaughter. All their hosts shall fall. This is the one we're looking at. Let's see, who lift up your eyes on high, so lift them up into heaven, and notice their host by number, calling them all by name, by the greatest. So every single one of these, including Genesis 2:1, okay, thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all their hosts. Now that would potentially include a part of it could include the earthly side, okay? But I want you to notice that's a little bit of an excluder, okay, an exclusion there, right? So I want you to notice that this very clearly has a connotation towards celestial beings. Now, we're going to go to the Septuagint, okay? I'm going to put it on the screen. I'm going to make this big for everyone. All right. Make this a little bit bigger here. So here's what this is, Isaiah 34 verse 4. And what does it say out of the Septuagint? It says, and all the powers of the heavens will be melted, and the heavens will be rolled up like a document, and all the stars will fall like leaves from a vine, and as leaves fall from a fig tree. So just notice the difference between these two, the way it gets translated, right? Notice that, did you see the scroll? It got translated in the Septuagint. Let me just read it again. It says, will be rolled up like a document, and all the stars will fall like leaves. All the stars. So now if you go to the NASB, we could do that as well, just to look at kind of, it's always good to look at a couple of different translations to see how they get translated. If I can find it in my, there we go, NASB. So here it says rolled up like a scroll, all its lights. Okay, so you see the difference. You've got all their hosts, stars, lights. Okay. So I think that should be at least enough to pay attention and to at least feel comfortable that these are, even though they can be translated as stars and lights, these would be very, very, very closely connected to angelic beings or celestial beings or supernatural powers, however you want to see it. Now, one thing I do want to kind of shed light on, yeah, so that's a great question, okay? Was Daniel in the list of hosts thinking Daniel 8? Been studying Isaiah this week and saw a lot fitting with Revelation. Yeah, so yeah, Daniel does seem to have some interesting connections to like celestial beings for sure. Let me kind of finish out on this, and I think this might tie in well. So if we look at the Septuagint, let me reduce this. If we look at the Septuagint in verse 4, notice, okay, we have Astra. Okay, this is Astra. which is where we get astrology or stars. Okay. If you go to see all their hosts, that's Sabah. I do want to go to, let me pull up. Um, let's see, is it Benton Septuagint? What is the, hang on just a second, guys. I'm looking for, oh, Brenton. Let me look at Brenton. Brenton Septuagint Greek. Let's see. Here's the English translation. All right. Brenton, verse 4. Here is, in the sky and all of their stars. Okay, that one does not have the transliteration built into it, the interlinear. Okay, so I'm doing all that to connect this word that's being used. I want to go to Romans real quick just to make a connection to what's transpiring here. This word that gets used is the word that Paul is going to use for the supernatural powers of darkness. Romans 8, which, shameless plug, we're doing actually a study in Romans. It's a virtual Zoom call study Friday mornings, 7:30 to 9 o'clock Central Standard Time. If that is something that you're interested in getting involved in and you want to, just scan the code, connect with me, shoot me a message. If you're in the Discord chat with Answering Adventism, I'm there as well. Find me on Facebook. It's pretty hard not to find me. So Romans 8:38 and 39. For I am sure that neither death nor angels, nor life, nor angels or rulers, nor things present or things to come, nor powers, nor heights, nor depth, nor anything else will be able to separate us from the love of God in Christ Jesus. Now, I want to show you, here is dynamis. Okay. If we do a search in dynamis, let me do a Bible word study real quick. And I want to go to the Septuagint. Okay. All right, let's find. I'm just scrolling. All right, looking at Exodus. I'm just looking for the different uses here. Sorry, hang on just a second, guys. Here. So one thing about the Septuagint, so this is power translated in ESV that can be translated the same here, but it also can be used for, notice down here, band, raid, troops. You've got, there's a connotation to like military side. There is, looking for, we'll get to it. Anyways, Paul, okay, what I want to pay attention to is that Paul isn't talking about, if you go back to Romans, Paul isn't just discussing in Romans, human entities. I mean, we know that from the context, right? Angels, rulers. By the way, arche is heavily used in Daniel, especially when he's talking about when Michael says, "I was held up," and he talks about the arche, the ruler, over, or the prince. These are all like supernatural kind of connections. Okay, present things nor powers. Okay, this is not a connection to just human rulers. Okay, so this is where we're going to get into Revelation now, as we dive into the Revelation side of things. If we go over to Revelation 6, 13 and 14, John is going to be using the Septuagint, or at least looks that way. when he's using this connection right here. Notice that's aster. Okay. That's this connection, and the stars of the sky fell to the earth as the fig tree sheds its winter fruit when shaken by a veil. Okay, so why is this important? I just want to point out that I don't think what John is talking about is an astrological event. Okay, that's in context. This heavily plays on what we were reading in Isaiah. Okay, the sky vanished like a scroll that was being rolled up, like a document. Remember, very similar. Every mountain and island was removed. Then the kings of the earth and the great ones and the generals. Okay, we get this stars falling, and this is within the sixth seal. So remember, if you've been with us up to this point, this is pre the second coming. This is not a post second coming thing. This is still like the earth is still functioning at this point. Okay, so he's going to draw a little bit on the Isaiah 34, as we've already discussed, and he uses their hosts devoted them to destruction, all of these ideas. The skies being rolled up with like a scroll or a document. The hosts are falling. He's going to be looping all these passages into this kind of context, this idea, okay? But it's pretty clear, in my opinion, that he's thinking about a celestial catastrophe. What do I mean by that? Well, I want to be on the same page with regards to this, okay? So let's go to, let's just kind of read through the passage. Random chance, good to have you here. Please stay safe. Don't look at the screen while you're driving. All right, so I want to read this entire sixth seal, and I just want to point out a few things. When he opened the sixth seal, I looked, and behold, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth. The full moon became like blood, and the stars of the sky fell to the earth as the fig tree sheds its winter fruit when shaken by a gale. The sky vanished like a scroll that was being rolled up. Now, that is a quote from Isaiah 34:4. Okay. And every mountain and island was removed from its place. Then the kings of the earth and the great ones. Did you notice up here the fig tree? This is also Isaiah 34:4. Like all this reference here in 13 and 14 is Isaiah 34:4. Okay. Then reading on in verse 15, then the kings of the earth and the great ones and the generals and the rich and the powerful and everyone slave and free hid themselves in the caves among the rocks and of the mountains, calling to the mountains and rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him who is seated on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of their wrath has come, and who can stand? All right. So the language that John is using here, if we just kind of stay with why he's using this particular imagery, it's celestial language that's tied into, yes, there is some sort of like physical stars. We just studied this morning. Figurative language or symbolic language only has meaning and significance if the thing being used has a literal meaning. So you know what stars falling are, but those stars falling, which can be some sort of imagery in this dream that John is having, can look like that, right? Stars falling. But it can also have this connotation, especially if he's pulling from verses that had celestial supernatural powers imagery in the Old Testament, it can have this context of supernatural entities falling, okay? And so this language that's being used here, this celestial language that's found in the Old Testament thought, Second Temple Jewish thought, it isn't always going to portray in the supernatural way, but it's frequently portrayed in that way. And my point is that it is very clearly portrayed that way. This is in context. It is very clearly portrayed in that way with the quote in verses 13 and 14 that John is using from Isaiah 34:4. Okay, so Isaiah 34:4, the language that's used there is 100% supernatural in why Isaiah is using it that way, which is the backdrop. This is the backdrop of what John is pulling on when he uses this in Revelation 6. Okay, so the backdrop is going to paint a pretty clear picture that the human armies and the celestial armies are going to be judged. That's the day of the Lord imagery. It's the human powers that are oppressing the people of God. They're going to get what's coming to them, but it's not just them. It's also the celestial powers, the supernatural powers that are also going to get what's coming to them. And those powers are the entities that are guiding and influencing humans behind the scenes. It's the same imagery in Daniel, where it talks about, the again, about Michael, the rulers. I was held up while I was kind of battling against, like, that whole imagery is very, very clear. Now, the phrase that we get at in verse 13, okay, the stars from the sky fell. Okay. Some versions say stars fell from heaven. Okay. This can also be found, just pay close attention. We have Matthew 24:29. This is Jesus himself. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light, and the stars will fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Notice, okay, I'm going to pull this up because perfect. I didn't even see this. I'm studying with you guys. This is dynamis. This is supernatural beings, friends. So even Jesus, in his statement with the coming of the Son of Man in the clouds, very clearly stating that these are supernatural entities. Okay, we get this also in Mark 13:25. In fact, that is also dynamis. I'm just gonna, for kicks and giggles, do I'm gonna go back to this word study real quick, and I want to look at 92 times. So this dynamis word is used actually 119 times. Okay. Now let's pay attention to, all right, let's look at, and this is why, friends, you've got to upgrade your tools and resources, because the searching power that we've got is just incredible. Okay. So this is stepping away from concordance searches. Please step away from those. And moving into original language syntax searches. It's way more precise. It gives you context. And so what we're looking at is these are the original Greek words for stars and heaven. Okay, so if we go to Matthew 24:29, this is aster, and then heaven is Oranos. sounds like Orion. It probably doesn't come from that. Um, but so here's what we have. Pay close attention. This isn't looking at English words. This is looking at the original language. Okay. And so I want you to notice we've got hits for star and heaven close together. Okay. Um, good, good deal, my friend. I'm glad you're getting groceries. By the way, like, I don't know if you're in a place where you could do this, but for us, we order it and it gets delivered to the house. Man, we live in a day that's crazy. There are places close to our house. So we live in Northwest Arkansas, and there are places in Northwest Arkansas. We can't do it at our house because there's kind of a flying strip over us. Um, but there are places that you can order up to a certain amount of weightage, and they will fly it to you with a drone, literally to your house. So man, it's crazy. Yes, I'm trying not to name names, but yes, Fallen Gentile, the famous doctor, the music doctor, and his awesome concordance work, where he supposedly debated an AI. Did you guys see that? He debated an AI defending the investigative judgment. Talk about a bunch of baloney. That is not how you do proper exegesis. We're not in the business of kind of combating AI to try to prove our points. All right, so back to the dialogue here. So notice we've got Matthew, Mark, and then look at all the other ones. Okay, we've got the two that we saw here that we already referenced, but notice the others are all in Revelation, all of them. Okay, a lot of end times systems make this very simple mistake. Okay, with regards to Revelation 6, 12 to 17, where we're kind of looking at the context. Isaiah 34:4, which is going to play an important role because it's easy to read through Revelation and only think about earthly armies. It's very easy to do that. And I don't know if that's something that you've been born and raised in. For the most part, I would say, for the most part, that would be applicable to the Adventist eschatology. Although with their great controversy theme, they have a tendency to kind of pull in some other stuff. But if you go online and you look at crazy kind of internet theology online, you're going to get crazy stuff like, oh, this is dealing with, Black Hawk helicopters. That's what the locusts are, and like crazy theology out there. Okay, so just a side note on that. Yes, AI will admit that you are correct in order to keep you happy. That is absolutely true. And what's interesting is, because I've done a lot of this just in my research, if you feed the AI something in an interesting order and then you reorder it and then you tell it to only kind of restrict its parameters and all this stuff, like, you can make it say practically anything. It doesn't mean that you've defended your point in any way. And by the way, AI for the most part is restricted to either online kind of resources, depending on the AI tool that you're using, or like preloaded resources that it's pulling from. It can't really look at everything out there. It's not yet built anyways for us access wise. I will say this, one thing that is really neat about Logos is you can actually use AI in Logos to perform searches. They're called smart searches. And what's different about AI in Logos is that it will search and look for solutions to your question using the resources that you itemize it with. So if you're looking at specifically Adventist things, you can kind of build it down to just Adventist resources, or if you want to look at the entire library, and it will actually quote books that you have and give you the footnotes for those books which is extremely helpful for research and citations. So that would be a good way of using AI. The way that it was used in the acronym that starts with an A and an L recently is a bunch of hogwash. All right, so I want to look at something that I don't have the physical book. I actually wish I did. But if you wanted to pick up an extremely helpful book, I can't promise it's going to be cheap because it is just an animal. This particular book. It's called Dictionary of Deities and Demons in the Bible. Just an incredible amount of research, academic work. It's just incredible. And so I want to actually look at a section. This is actually, if you look at the contents menu down here, part of why this is helpful, just so you guys know, this particular dictionary is organized by what's called head words. Okay. And so you'll see down here like nomos, for example, which is the Greek word for law. And so you can actually, it'll feed into you, here's the Greek Bible. The word nomos is often used in a personification, and it gives you Greek text that would be outside of the Greek Bible. You're going to look at Jewish items and how it's used. So it's going to go through all the ins and outs of kind of the way the word functions. Now, if we go back to this particular location, this is dynamis, which is the Greek word that we have been looking up, that we've been utilizing, right? So if we go back to let's see, Revelation. I'm going to go to Revelation 6:13, just those of you that are paying attention here. Sorry, let's find, where's the word ruler. Man, I did not. All right, let me go back to. I had it. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? General's powers. Well, doggone it. All right. Give me a second. We're going to find it. Just be patient with me. All right. So I am going to look up dynamis. Dynamis. All right, there it is. Yeah, this is my particular favorite. Yes, someone here is a Naked Bible fan. You are absolutely correct. I want to look at the biblical references here. So we can look at, now, I will say this is a little bit of a better way to organize right down here. So this is ruler and power. And come on, let me dock this tab so that you can see it. Okay. So this is organizing. I'm going to try to explain this without getting too detailed. So in a concordance is organized by English words and the number of times that particular English word is used in that particular English book. Okay. So if you're doing an English Bible, like an ESV, if you're doing a KJV or a new KJV, you have to have a concordance for that particular book. I can make concordances inside of Logos for absolutely any of the 32,000 books I have. So it'll actually categorize all those documents or the words. It'll do it for Greek, Hebrew, Latin, Aramaic, like whatever it is that the book that you need. But this here, this structure on the screen is showing you the sense or the semantic domain of a word. So a word fits into a kind of category of words inside the original language. You're going to see why this is so helpful when we get into kind of trying to piece out what the words mean. Okay, so this is dynamis, which is power, ruler, that kind of thing. We get a couple of references here. Notice that this is the Matthew 24:29. Notice that Romans 8:38 is in there as well that we already looked at. But I want you to notice that this sits under, okay? This sits under supernatural. It sits under supernatural being. And then it's going to sit under power or ruler right here. Okay. We've got supernatural being, ruler. All these are categorized closely that fit all of the supernatural entities. Okay. So you can easily click into these, kind of see the different words. So you've got almighty person, angel, being, elemental, creator, God. All these are different words in the Greek language that can be used for a supernatural entity. And I know I'm spending a lot of time on this, but I just want everyone to understand this is the importance of using good terms. It's the importance of using good resources that help you truly begin to understand the original language. And I always say this a little bit tongue in cheek, but it cracks me up when people online will accuse me or other people that I know that are very studious of like not keeping things in context. And those individuals are using like a KJV and a concordance, and that's about it. I'm trying to do my best not to say specific names. So let's go back to real quick. All right, let me pull this up. That was a lot to explain. Now this is under the subheading for dynamis, okay? And I'm going to read this entire section here, okay? Before becoming a divine name or epithet, power or dynamis has had a long and diversified history. As name or epithet, epithet is like a title of a deity or an entity, okay? Can be used in many different ways in biblical and post-biblical literature. This usage must be distinguished from more general notions of divine power. All of antiquity assumed that deities have power, they dispense power, and interfere in human life with their power. The degree of power and deities were believed to control determined their status and place in hierarchies, as well as the kind of cultic worship they received from human beings. Cultic worship of deities was not only motivated by such power, but was itself a way of participating in it. Now, this is the part I had highlighted that I wanted to read. Attributed to the highest deities, the epithet power, okay, and that's dynamis, indicates total sovereignty and control, while lesser deities, angels, demons, elemental forces, and even human divine men are agents of the former. They're agents of this like divine epithet power, having been endowed or charged by them. All right, let's go down to this section. I'm going to skip down just a little bit. There's a lot we could, and again, I'm going to say this. If any of you want to read any of these articles in their fullness, just reach out to me. You can always connect with me on the blog, scan the code. Like I always say, reach out, connect with me. I am more than happy to put together a PDF, send it to you, have you read it. I'm skipping in these articles because we just don't have the time to read absolutely every part of this. So this is just moving forward in the article. The epithet of Sebaat, which occurs more than 200 times in the Hebrew Bible, is frequently translated by the Lexem, by the Septuagint, by Hellenistic epithets such as Kyrios Pantocrator, which is Krios. Okay. And you'll see this ton dimion, that is a form of like dynamis. Okay. But it can also appear as a new name, Sebaath. Now, don't get too connected here because that looks awfully close to Sabbath. just stay calm. Um, all right. So while Sabah means army, Greek translators transposed it into Greek cosmological concepts. This development was preceded by the universal character of post-exilic theology, for which the Lord of hosts is the God of the whole earth. Now, this is Isaiah 54:4. Okay. His army, the God, the Lord of hosts, his army even includes all powers of heaven and earth. There's a bunch of verses here, including, here you go. Let's see, Adrian, when you were mentioning earlier about, let me find your comment. When you were mentioning earlier about the Daniel 8, okay, this is actually Daniel 3, but it's specifically in the Septuagint, okay, and that is there's about 40, close to 40 verses there. Now this is actually in the this is actually in the Apocrypha, the Songs of Three, where that particular segment comes up. All right, so let's keep moving. Thus, Hellenistic Judaism of the Septuagint reinterprets the old warrior god in terms of a cosmic deity in control of all natural and supernatural forces. Whew. Okay, so the Greek language, and we've got to just pay close attention to this, okay? Greek is deeply entrenched with this supernatural entity idea, this concept of the supernatural, because he's drawing very specifically, as we've already looked at, on Isaiah 34:4, okay, when we're going to Revelation 6. So there's already this connection, this almost this rubber band effect of connecting, where John is connecting or talking about the stars of heaven falling. He's not really trying to convey an asteroid catastrophe. That's not what's going on here. Okay. We're not talking about some sort of NASA event of some sort. No, we're not talking about Elon Musk. No, we're not talking about any of that stuff. And so we have to kind of dispense with this, especially when we're dealing with John's theology in Revelation. We have to get away from this uber literalism that tends to pop up all over the place. We're talking about judgment of the cosmic powers of darkness, along with suffering and apocalyptic violence, is what we're talking about that happens on the earth. Now, what is fascinating is that Revelation 6, and this is going to tie nicely into what Viga Cool actually brought up. If you have not listened to the Naked Bible podcast, you should. You absolutely should. Start at the beginning and keep rolling through. There are hundreds of episodes, and you will absolutely become a better reader of the Word of God by listening to Michael Heiser. But Dr. Heiser talks quite a bit about this Deuteronomy 32 worldview. Now, I'm going to bring up this particular section just to show you. So when we get to, so Deuteronomy 32 is called the Song of Moses. This is like the final song before his death. And as you scroll through and kind of read some of this stuff, I'm gonna start at verse 7. And remember, this is Moses is gonna die. He does not get to see the paradise land. Later on, there's going to be, like Jude references, struggling or battling over the body of Moses. That's a whole nother dynamic. But he's singing his last song, basically, to the Israelite nation. And so in that kind of last final word, he's telling them to remember where they came from. Okay. Remember the days of old. This is verse 7 out of the ESV. Consider the years of many generations. Ask your father, and he will show you. Your elders, they're going to show you. What are they going to show you? And this is what I want to key in on. When the Most High gave the nations their inheritance, when he divided mankind, he fixed the borders of the peoples according to the number of the sons of God. Now, this is really important. We're going to get to the sons of God in just a second. But the Lord's portion is his people, Jacob, his allotted heritage. Now, I'm going to say this again, okay? And yes, Dr. Heiser was key to me being led out of the Adventist church, which I am super grateful for. I cannot wait to thank him when I see him on the other side. But the Unseen Realm, this book right here, just really gives a great context to all of this concept. Now, I want to show you in, just going to do this quickly, okay? This sons of God. Now, first thing I would say is when I would ask you, we don't have to go into like a major scholarly dialogue on this. I would ask you, sitting there listening to Moses give his final words, okay? When was the time when the Most High gave the nations their inheritance? When did God divide up the borders and the people? When did that happen? When did Elyon, when did Yahweh do that? Well, if you think about pre-Moses, okay, the only time that had happened so far is the Tower of Babel. That's what is being referenced. Moses is thinking back and saying, hey, remember the time, remember your fathers, talk to them, talk to your elders. They're going to tell you about this. Don't forget. Okay. And it was at the Tower of Babel that the nations were separated and segmented out. And when they get segmented out, don't forget, what does he say? He says, well, the Lord's portion, the people that he brought to himself, is through Jacob. That's who the Lord takes on. Again, we know that that's understood as like the remnant of the Old Testament, the people, the Jewish nation through Jacob, all that stuff. But I want to point out, because this is really important, he divided them up according to the number of the sons of God. Now, I'm not going to go to Genesis 6 because that's a whole rabbit trail, okay? But there is a footnote here to compare the sons of God to the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Septuagint, and the Masoretic text. Now, I'm going to pause here for a second, okay? And I'm like way going off script on this, okay? If you haven't done any kind of study on the history of the Bible, the progression of the manuscripts that we currently have that allow us to actually have an English Bible. There are three basic manuscripts or categories of manuscripts. It's not really the proper way of saying it, but you're going to get what I mean. Okay. The Masoretic text, which the Masoretic text is actually the most contemporary text. So the Masoretic text is actually the traditional Hebrew text behind most of the translations in the New Testament. But what most people don't understand about the Masoretic text, I'm just going to put this on the screen. Again, we're going off script here. The manuscripts, the Masoretic text, developed over an extended period of time, beginning in the 2nd century. I want you to understand this, friends. The Masoretic text started in the 2nd century, and it did not actually get finished until the 10th century AD. The Masoretic text is a text that is foreign to Jesus. Now, I don't mean that it's different. That's not what I mean, okay? But manuscripts were copied by scribes, okay? And the Masoretes, okay, the Masoretic text, which is translated at the term Mazora, okay? The Masoretes, Tiberian Masoretes, were the scribes that used the Hebrew scrolls to transcribe and copy into what is known today by us as the Masoretic text. That Masoretic text is the main base text for this BHC, which is the Biblia Hebraica Stritskosian. Whew, that's a mouthful. In fact, I have it sitting on my library over here. I didn't grab it. Okay. Now, why is that important? Well, it is the most it's the most inclusive, and it's the fullest document that we have that attributes the Hebrew scriptures. Okay. But it is not the oldest. So remember, there's three categories, right? We have the Dead Sea Scrolls, we have the Septuagint, which we've already kind of talked about a little bit, okay? The Septuagint, and then we have the Masoretic text. And most people, and by the way, King James Bible is actually based on the Masoretic text, okay? So if an individual is a KJV only individual, part of the problem is the manuscripts, and I'll share with you why in just a second, okay? So when we get to, well, let's talk about the Dead Sea Scrolls, okay? Now, I don't know how much you know about the Dead Sea Scrolls, okay? But the Dead Sea Scrolls are an archaeological artifact that was discovered fairly recently. In fact, it was discovered, here's a little bit of Adventist history. It was discovered post Ellen White. Post Ellen White. Okay. So that means, the Dead Sea Scrolls can be dated. They were actually, the Dead Sea Scrolls were brought to the U.S. specifically in I think it's 1945. No, 1949. And you can kind of look at, here's some of the Dead Sea Scrolls here. Okay. Now the Dead Sea Scrolls, just if you didn't know this, they didn't have just the Hebrew scrolls. They didn't have just these are canonical scrolls and non-biblical scrolls, as well as other sacred documents. Okay. They're not just the Hebrew scrolls. And it was actually in the Qumran community. These were found later on, and they were found in these old jars, all this stuff. Okay. Well, the Dead Sea Scrolls are the oldest. They are the oldest set. Here we have, they were found in 11 caves in the Qumran community. These scrolls date approximately to 250 BC to AD 50. So just notice, okay, I want you to already see this, right? The Masoretic text, 2nd century to 10th century. They were completed in the 10th century. The Dead Sea Scrolls, 250 BC, all the way up to kind of right around Christ's ascension, okay, just after. In fact, probably just before John probably wrote Revelation, depending on when you date it, okay? And there's all these other non-biblical stuff, okay? So the problem, the challenge with the Dead Sea Scrolls is that they are fragmented. They're so old that they're fragmented. And so there are portions of the Hebrew Bible that we don't have in the Dead Sea Scroll. Like it was disintegrated. We just don't have them, right? We wish we had them, but we don't have them. So when you're looking at comparing the Dead Sea Scrolls with the Septuagint, okay, and we'll get to that in just a second, versus the manuscript of the Masoretic text, a lot of this has to do with dating, okay? Now, let's go real quick to the Septuagint, just to give you context, okay? The Septuagint, here we go. I'm going to put it on the screen here. Forget about why it's the way it is and all that stuff, the name. The Septuagint, Greek translation of the Jewish Bible, 24 books of the Hebrew canon. It includes the deuterocanonical items. You see that, the things that we actually looked at. Origin, history. I want to find the dates, okay? So Jewish sources, the so-called letter of Aristeas is the most important primary source about the name and work of the tradition concerning its origin. The letter dates to the 2nd century BC. Some date it as early as 200 BC. Now, so here's what I want you to understand about this, okay? What I want you to understand is that the Septuagint is pre-Jesus, okay? As early as 200 BC, it had already been the Hebrew documents had already been translated into Greek through the Septuagint. So you could either quote from the Hebrew scrolls or you could quote from the Greek scrolls, the Septuagint. And again, because in Jesus' time, they predominantly spoke Greek because it's a Greco-Roman culture. Most of the time, they were speaking Greek and they were quoting from the Septuagint. Not always, okay? Not always, okay? That's not the case with John's Apocalypse because it's a very Jewish document. He is a Jew, and so he's referencing a lot of the Hebrew scrolls. Now, remember the dates. Please remember the dates, right? Septuagint is probably older than the Dead Sea Scrolls dating, or right around the same time, okay? And then the Masoretic text is way more contemporary to our modern time, way closer, although it is 100% complete, okay? So we don't have any kind of missing things per se, although in some of the scribal copying, there were certain verses that were added or not, or edited, or textual variants and things of that nature, okay? All right. All of that to finally get to what I wanted to get to. The sons of God. We're going to look at the sons of God in all of these places. We're going to look at it. This actually, the ESV, it generally uses what they feel is the best translation, whatever that is, right? The Septuagint, okay, this is verse 8 here, the Septuagint, according to, notice what it says, okay? This is according to the Angelon Theo, the angels of God, okay? So just pay attention. We've got sons of God, we've got angelos of God. Now, I don't generally quote from, let me pull this up, the Dead Sea Scrolls I'm going to find it here and get it real quick. Okay, what you're looking at, let me make this a little bit bigger for you. Okay, so this is the Dead Sea Scroll Bible. And the Dead Sea Scroll Bible is going to have lots of these brackets. Okay, anytime you have a bracket like this, the square brackets surround areas that are lost in the scroll due to kind of like various types of damage. Whether it's, it's just old, it's crumbled, it's missing, it's whatever it is. Okay. So they insert kind of things from the Septuagint or other areas to kind of insert in. So sometimes you have something there and sometimes you don't. So pay attention here. We have verse 8. I'm going to make this bigger for you all. So this is verse 8. Now this is what's missing. The Most High, when something gave something their inherit, okay, he separated, we know that. And then this is missing. We don't have any of that text, but we do have the children of God. Now this comes from the it's the fourth Qumran scroll. It's the 4Q Deuteronomy J. And then you can also look at the Masoretic text. They pull in Israel. So if you see, so just understand the difference here. You've got sons of God. You've got angels of God. You've got children of God. And then you have, I think if you go to King James, King James Bible says children of Israel. That's a totally side, like what in the world? Where'd they get Israel? There's some reasons why. I'm not going to side skirt into that. But I want you to understand the progression here, okay? We have the Dead Sea Scrolls, which is probably a little bit more contemporary to the Septuagint, maybe, okay? Says, that one says children of God. Then you have the Septuagint, who's translating the Hebrew documents into Greek, saying, where's the Septuagint? Saying angels of God. And then you also have sons of God, depending on how you're kind of using, it might be sons of Israel, so this is sons of God, which is kind of a mixture of the two. That's what the ESV is doing. All right. That's a lot to just say that it's my opinion, and I'm not the only one that holds this opinion. It is my opinion that this would be a very good reference to the Pauline theology of the rulers, the dynamis, that are behind human entities or human rulers. Okay. You have God designating rulership, supernatural rulership over certain geographical regions that got divided up at the Tower of Babel. And what did he do? He disinherited the other nations, and then he inherits the nation that will become Israel through Jacob. Okay. Whew, that's a lot. So let's move back to Revelation 6. I see a couple of good comments here. Let's see here. I'm just looking at comments. You guys are having fun in the comments section. Enjoy. I love it. Don't think a whole lot for me to comment on. All right. So Revelation 6, if John was describing the judgment of human powers that are persecuting believers, you would think that he would leave out the language that's tied to these supernatural entities that we also get in Daniel 10, that we get in, I didn't bring this up in my dialogue, but also Psalm 82. Notice right here, in the midst of the gods, he holds judgment. And here we get, how long will you be judge unjustly? This is in the divine council. Give justice to the weak and the fatherless, maintain the right and afflicted and the destitute, rescue the weak and the greedy, deliver them from the hand of the wicked. They have neither knowledge nor understanding. They walk about in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are shaken. I said, you are gods. Here we go. Sons of the Most High. So that would be like sons of God. Okay. And there are some translations that do that. Sons of God. Okay. The words here so this is sons of Elyon, which we've seen in other translations, God, Yahweh. It kind of depends on how an individual is going to translate that in its context. Okay. So you get the same thing in Daniel 10. If you look at Daniel 10 with this terrifying vision, and you get, a hand touched me, Daniel kind of freaks out. And then what does he say? He says, fear not. The first day I've set my heart out. This is like, hey, I listened to you. I heard you, Daniel. The prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me. Okay. This language for prince. Okay. I'll bring this up. This is, I believe, Sar. Yes. Sar. And you'll notice even down here in the sense, this is the Hebrew scholars, the scholars at Logos are kind of cueing you to point you in the direction of supernatural here. These are not, again, what is he saying? Daniel, I was battling, Michael isn't saying, this isn't saying that Michael was battling a human ruler. These are supernatural entities that are being battled, that he took care of for 21 days. And then he ends up that's what held him up, so to speak. Now, side note, because this does play into Michael. Okay. Just side note, in this text, okay, the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days, but Michael, one of the chief priests, came to help me, and I was left there with the kings of Persia and came to make you understand what is to happen. In its context, this does not give me, anyways, the sense that Michael, if it was Jesus, I don't believe it is, it gives the sense that Michael is not omniscient. It's not like he can be everywhere, right? He went, right? He came and helped. Okay, so it doesn't give the sense that, at least in Daniel's mindset here, he's not thinking of Michael being this omniscient, God angel being that not just Adventists, but others will kind of posit with regards to Michael the Archangel. All right. I'm not going to get off on the rail on that. All right. So this is like, these are the supernatural things that are behind this persecution that we're getting in Revelation 6. Okay. Now, I do want to, we're getting close to the end of the time. I do want to just discuss for a little bit before we exit out. I want to discuss this falling star language. And we assume that when we see the stars that fell from heaven, that statement, oftentimes we're going to think like meteorology, or we're going to think asteroids or shooting stars or things of that nature, right? The modern side of this is going to be kind of brought up, but I think that's kind of a false assumption. I think we need to be careful when we're dealing with that. Okay. I want to check out the language. Okay. That language in Revelation 6. Okay. Sky star. Where's the stars here? Let me find right here. You can't see my footnote here, but it points me towards Revelation 8:10. Okay. So there's a cross reference. And if you don't have a study Bible, this is just Another reference material, if you want to pick it up, um, there's a reference material that's called the it's the new treasury of scripture knowledge. This particular piece of work is pretty incredible. This is a cross-reference work. And what it does basically is it gives you cross references where all of these particular words are used or pulled up from. Okay, so if you go to Revelation 6:13 and you see the stars here, you're going to get references like Revelation 8, 9, Isaiah 13, Ezekiel 32, Daniel 8. There's that Daniel 8. You get Luke 21, and then you get the fig tree that gets mentioned, untimely figs. So this would be a reference work, a cross-reference work that would be something that you could also add to your references if you don't have any digital cross-reference work on this. Now, these connections that we see are just keeping within the scriptures. We're not looking at outside. We're not looking at Second Temple stuff, right? If we expand that, yes, that's exactly right. TSK2. And it's the New Testament. Or the one that I had on the screen. There's a first and second version, I think. Okay. I'm not sure what that means, Lyle. Okay. So if you expand outside of the scriptures, we're going to see how this language gets used in intertestamental time periods. So Second Temple. The language gets used in the Second Temple period in several different contexts. And this is where we're going to kind of land. I wish we could go through more of this, but this is going to pull up, for instance, in First Enoch. Now, Enoch is going to be in the Septuagint if you get the Lexham version. Okay. So this is First Enoch 18:13. I saw there 7 stars like great burning mountains, and to me, when I inquired regarding them, the angel said, "This place is the end of heaven and earth. This has become a prison for the stars and the host of heaven." So there's a clear connection to the stars being connected to supernatural entities. First Enoch 21:3, and there I saw 7 stars of heaven bound together. Again, these are all connections to celestial beings. Same thing in First Enoch 46:7. These are they who judge the stars of heaven. You get First Enoch 86:3, 88:3, and then also First Enoch 19:21. I'm trying to get to the conclusion point on this because we're running out of time. Okay. Yes, a good connection to Jude and Second Peter, absolutely. So all of these are using phrases for falling stars of what's called the Watchers in Enochian documents. Okay. So supernatural powers that are in rebellion. Now, this is Second Temple stuff. This is Jewish literature, intertestamental literature, but these are references. Enoch. These are references to the way in which Jewish individuals would understand it outside of the canon. Okay. So I want you to listen to what Nicholsburg. Now, Nicholsburg is one of the, I'm just going to read this, is one of the just a prolific writers about Enoch. Okay. And friends, let me just say this. Enoch is not canon. Okay. I'm never going to say it's canon. I don't think there's a reason it's not canon. That's a whole nother conversation. Okay. But documents don't have to be canon in order to be helpful and useful. Okay. You go to the library and you read books that are not canon and you find value in them. No one's saying that Enoch is canon. Okay. And yes, Adrian, Ellen enjoyed the Apocrypha. Ellen, it's not like we don't have to it's not like it has to be canon is the only thing that we can study. Okay. You don't do that because you went to school and you read other books as well. Okay. But this is Nicholsburg, and he references in First Enoch 86:3, where this is the actual reference. This is the document reference. So this is First Enoch 86:3. Again, I saw in vision and looked towards the heaven, and behold, I saw many stars descend and cast themselves down from heaven to that first star, and they became bulls amongst those cattle and pastured with them or amongst them. Now, this is what Nickelberg said. He says in First Enoch 86:1-3, stars are an image for the watchers. And in Daniel 12:3 and First Enoch 104:2, stars and angels may even be identified with one another. An extremely close connection is indicated in First Enoch 82:4-20. Thus, when First Enoch 18:15 speaks of transgressing stars, it is alluding to a variation of the myth of the rebellion of the watchers. So this is star language, okay? This is star language. So because of our timing, and man, it's Prima, it's great that you jump in at the end of an hour and a half of study and you just kind of get after it here. I love how you just jump in there. So I just want to encourage you all. Don't be afraid of looking at other Jewish documents to help bring context to potentially, okay, this is why we do this, potentially why authors would kind of engage and express using the language that they choose to use. Okay. Now, again, Enoch is not canon. Okay. And just because Prima made the statement here, Enoch isn't canon. Ellen White isn't canon. Okay. I have no problem using any documents, any literature, as long as it does not go against scripture. Okay. The reason that Enoch is not scripture is one conversation. We're not going to have that conversation today. But the reason that Ellen White, in my opinion, not only isn't canon and should be avoided is because she conflicts with scripture. Okay. So now you might disagree with me. That's fine. That's okay. You can show your proof. My research indicates that Ellen White pretty much only knew how to plagiarize other literary documents and claim them to be her own, and then said that God gave it to her, and then she contradicts scripture. So, having said that, we are 5 minutes over. I loved hanging out with you all. Next time, which I hope is going to be Sunday. I hope. That's the hope. Okay. We are going to just finalize and finish this New Testament star language. Hang out with us again, Prima, because listen, I'm not going to answer this one right now, but the New Testament star language is very, very clear. We'll kind of get through some of that. And hopefully you'll have a good understanding of that. Thank you for spending time today. Appreciate you guys tons. Don't forget, make sure you hit the like, share, subscribe. Tuesday, just don't forget Tuesday. Tuesday is going to be a deep dive on the historical analysis and development of the Trinity in Orthodox Christianity and in Adventism. So, with that being said, be blessed, be safe, keep it real, stay in the Word of God, and appreciate you guys tons. We'll talk to you next time, okay?